Bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away.
I really liked being a severed head in the fridge and having a scene where I speak to Ryan as a severed head.
What do you think I should do?
I think it's time to see if the cat knows what he's talking about.
She's right.
I totally agree.
Well, me out of that.
The Voices is one of those movies where people really love it or really hate it, which is kind of great. And the reactions on Twitter are always so amazing because at this point, people are just kind of finding it, stumbling upon it. So they're either like, this is the craziest movie I've ever seen, it's amazing, or they're like, what the hell did I just watch?
Oh, Jerry, change that fucking channel before I explode. Oh, that's more like it.
I remember reading that script and getting to the part with Bowling Jesus and being like, if Ryan Reynolds doesn't do this movie, I have no faith and I don't think it's gonna work. But he's so likable that even as a mentally ill serial killer, I'm like, I think we're gonna be rooting for him.
I'm so sorry.
Jared, I won't tell anyone.
I wish that you didn't have to see that.
And I really, really wanted to work with Marjane because Persepolis is one of my favorite films of all time. She's just so dark and funny, and that comes across in Persepolis and very much in The Voices. I remember meeting her over Skype, spending like half an hour making sure that I had like my best angle. I like put the computer up on books so it wasn't like a weird low angle. Brought all these lamps over to make sure it was well lit and stuff because I just wanted to like charm the pants off of her. Pretty crafty of me, actually. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I had a general meeting with Edgar Wright, and I was such a big fan of his movies, and Hot Fuzz is still my second favorite movie of all time. I just kind of wanted to do anything that he was going to do, so the idea that he was doing this movie that had so many parts for people around my age got me really amped up. They gave me this script. They didn't just watermark the script, meaning like put your name on every page so that if it ever got released or photocopied, they would know like it came from your script specifically. It was treated with this metallic overlay so that you physically couldn't photocopy it. It would only photocopy as bright white. I've been sent some pretty top secret scripts in my time, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was the only one that I've ever gotten that was treated with this like NASA technology to make sure that we couldn't leak the script, even though it was already a comic book. I remember reading it and being like, I'm just gonna trust that this is all gonna come together. I'm gonna put my faith in Edgar because I definitely remember being like, this is a little out there. Something like Kieran Culkin opening the door, saying Scott's not home right now, and Michael Cera jumping through the window.
He just left.
It's just one of those visual gags that's hard to put on paper. I definitely remember my first reaction being, I have no idea what this movie is gonna be, but obviously, like, I just had to trust the process. End of watch. I remember my first memory of that is sitting in the director David Ayer's house, rehearsing this scene with Jake Gyllenhaal at his dining room table. That was a scene that David had written just for rehearsal, what would have been our first date, so that we had this history. And that was the first time that anybody had ever done that. We did this weird scene where I remember talking about studying science and saying that I ran all the food that I ate for a week through a mass spectrometer to monitor my sodium intake. That was one of the lines in that first date scene. So romantic. Obviously, it's one of the greatest love stories ever committed to film. I would actually love to do that kind of thing for a movie again. I think it was a really smart thing to do so that the scenes we didn't ever rehearse, so that it didn't feel stale, but we had rehearsed the crap out of this scene that wasn't even in the movie. So it was like we got to know our characters and how their rhythm would be, but we hadn't actually said a single line from the film before we started making the movie. The way that we filmed that movie, we had cameras rolling all the time, and if there wasn't a camera rolling, somebody would pick up a handheld camera because it was a found footage movie. So there was a point where Jake and I were walking to craft services, which is the snack table, and we were like, oh, there's no cameras. Oh, we don't have to be like pretending to be in love and holding hands. Pitch Perfect was a script where I met with the director after reading it, and I remember really pushing the idea that it was never gonna work if Becca was supposed to be like the girl with the dragon tattoo, like so cool and so badass, because she just isn't. And also, I don't think I could play the ultimate badass. I remember them putting the tattoos on me and going like, Brittany Snow has more tattoos than this in real life. This isn't that scandalous or badass. So I definitely kind of wanted to lean into the idea that she thinks she's kind of a badass and a lone wolf, but she like really needs family and community, and that's why she kind of falls in love with all the girls in the Bellas. Up in the Air was one that I kind of based on my childhood best friend, because I remember there was a period in her life where she was like, I just want to work on Wall Street and wear suits and just be like such a badass. I think because we both had older brothers, there was a part of us that was like aspired to be male, because we like hadn't embraced our feminine power, if you will. This girl, you know, she's like 23, and I think because she doesn't know where her power lies yet, she's essentially trying to be a dude. You know, she's gonna fail because that's not where her power is. She's like trying to be tough so badly in like a traditional masculine way, and it's just like undercutting her at every turn. My best friend doesn't work on Wall Street, I'm happy to report. George was, I couldn't have asked for a better first experience on a big movie like that. He really taught me so much about the way that you can support your scene partner in like subtle ways and ways you can't even really describe. It was just like, I'm getting the kind of masterclass that people would pay, you know, squillions to be a part of, and I get to like be 5 feet away from him learning every day. A Simple Favor. It's not just different from my other films, I think it's different from like any movie I've ever seen because it's so genre bendy. It was kind of a head trip making it because it was never clear how much of ourselves to take seriously and how much we could kind of wink at the characters. And that was something that Blake and I talked to Paul Feig about almost hourly. We were like, is this funny? Am I being funny here? It just never felt like we were doing jokes, so we weren't sure how far to push the comedy because it isn't really a comedy. It kind of makes you laugh, and there are situations that are uncomfortable and the characters are a little over the top, but it's definitely like human and real, and the stakes are very real. I had moments of doubt, and he was just really confident about like the clarity of his vision, and you just have to respond to that kind of confidence. Like there was part of me that sort of based Stephanie in A Simple Favor on my mom, and I had to abandon that because there were so many scenes where she gets kind of insulted and she just takes it. There was part of me that was like, I don't like the way you're talking to my mom. So I had to like jettison that. My mom is a very sunny, positive person, but she will rip your head off if you push her too hard. So I also just didn't believe that you could talk to my mom that way.